today we're going to be tying, this is actually, I really like this pattern a lot. I know I say that about all of them, but this is the EP Adams. And basically it's an Adams dry fly. I've got a size 14 dry fly hook here in the vise with some just kind of beige nano silk. So this is going to be a lot like the traditional Adams, but it uses some trigger point fibers for the wings. So rather than the tips of some hackles. So we're going to actually just start about halfway down the hook. I'm going to, place my thread in place right here, and then we're going to start building a tail. So the tail, like the hackle on the front, is going to be used with two different varieties. One is going to be a Grizzly and the other is going to be a furnace. And I stripped some of the fibers off of this Grizzly hackle here to start our tail, and I want that tail to be about the length of the body. So we're going to take that to about right there. We'll take a wrap or two and check for length. And I'm feeling pretty good with that, so I'm going to actually leave this in place. Now once I've got some of the fibers taken off of the furnace hackle, I'm just going to measure that to be the same length as the Grizzly we already have on. Give it a couple of wraps just to mix things up a little bit. But then I'm just going to go ahead and unwrap all of this. And now we've got our nice Grizzly and furnace hackle tail. So once again, I'll just take a couple of wraps and we'll kind of see where we are. And it's a little bushy, but I'm good with that. And go ahead and take our thread right on down. Now that we've kind of finished that tail up, right about where the bend of the hook or the bend of the hook is. I'm going to take one wrap just underneath. I do that from time to time when I'm tying dries. Just on the tail, it just helps them prop up a little bit better. And we'll go a little bit up here and go ahead and cut off. So for the wing, we are going to turn to some trigger point. This just happens to be one that I have that is in a gray, a caddis gray, and it's going to blend in really nicely with this pattern. It's the EP Fly's trigger point, which I'm sure that's why it's called the EP Adams. So we're going to start out. I've got 20 or so fibers grabbed here. I'm going to want to tie in closer to the back end and let the length of this go over the top of the shank of the hook. I'm going to just go ahead and take a couple of wraps to get that secured to the top of the hook. And I'm going to want that really to be pretty centered. So go ahead and crank down on that just a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and keep this last little bit that's going out over the tail in my fingers, because I'm going to backwardsly come in and clip those at an angle, which will help us with our taper. Basically, that was me cutting with my right hand, and I'm left-handed, so that's what I mean. The angle was right for the scissors, but the skill is not there in the arm or the hand. So I'm going to take my trigger point, I'm going to hold it straight up from me, and I'm going to twist it. And I'm just going to twist it like I'm tightening something, so it's going clockwise. And after I have a few twists in it, I'm just going to bring it down, just like so. We'll get a wrap over that to secure it down. A few more in front just to help it stand up a little bit for us. We've got our wing and our tail in place. Let's go ahead and we're going to dub this up. I'm going to use some Nature Spirit Beaver dry fly dubbing in tan. Stuff is great. It's like super fine. It is super fine. And being made of beaver, it's not going to, it will withstand water a little bit. So your dry flies stay a little drier. I'm just going to finger dub this Grabbing on here, going down. I want it nice and tight at the front. We'll fix this stubby noodle as we go along a little bit, but I've got a few wraps of bare thread to get me back there to the back end of the hook. And here I want to make sure my dubbing is nice and tight and that I get at least one really good wrap like that around the tails. And then we're just going to work our way back up towards behind the eye of the hook, creating a little bit of that taper as we go. Get a nice wrap there behind the wing. We'll get back in front. Take a few wraps there. And with that, I'm just going to bring my thread, and that's why I got beige colored and using tan dubbing, as it'll blend in pretty well. I'm just going to come back to here where I want to tie in the last two hackles that we'll use for the wings. So for our hackle, for our legs, we're going to tie in a piece of furnace hackle and one Grizzly hackle. So I'll go ahead and just start wrapping this hackle. Try to get a couple of wraps here behind our wing thing that's hanging out the front there. Let's get our thread moved over to the front of that wing as well. I'm going to get another wrap in right in as tight as I can behind that. And from there I'm just going to move to as tight as I can in front of it. So I'm now going to pull that material back. We're going to go ahead and go over it with a turn or two. So it's okay to go ahead and grab that that wing while you're getting your last couple of wraps of the hackle here. Maybe one more. Sometimes I get a little greedy. So with that in place, we've wrapped our furnace and our Grizzly at the same time there. I'm just going to take a couple of wraps over the top of those stems while they're still nice and tight, so we don't lose any of those wraps. And then I'm going to take a wrap or two right behind the eye of the hook. I'm going to grab my smallest scissors so that I can kind of sneak in here and try not to cut off the thread, but cut these off right where they're tied off. So we'll finish off the EP Adams by taking this trigger point that we tied in at first. I'm going to turn my head a little bit sideways. I want to cut this just a little bit longer than what the hackle is. Not a lot, just a little. Just about like that. And from there I can kind of spread that out. And we've got a very nice reflective wing that will kind of go along with us on this pattern. So there you have it. The EP Adams Dry. This is a wonderful pattern, and it's a great variety to the ones where you don't use trigger point, where you're using, you know, the tips of a couple Grizzly hackle, which is kind of the traditional way. But I really like the way that this ties. It's very fast and easy. It's easy to get in front of and behind that wing the way it's constructed, and then you can cut it at the very end like you can see and kind of distribute it out. So easy to see on the water. It's going to float well. This is a tried and true pattern, the Adams. Throw a hook in your vise and give it a shot.